Hello everybody, welcome to the first sit down video in my new apartment. If you missed it, my last video was me moving and now I live in a new state in a new apartment. But it is coming up on fall. It feels like it already is fall. Not in the weather, but in the vibes. I'm pretending it's fall. I have my Rory Gilmore sweater on and I'm going full fall vibes. I've been rewatching The Vampire Diaries. Harry Potter marathons are about to start. It's full on fall season in my mind. I've been getting pumpkin spice coffee every day. It's fall to me. As much as I love summer, I also embrace the fall, so I'm ready for fall to start. So obviously I had to gather some fall book recommendations for you guys. I feel like in my head when I read a book, I automatically categorize it as like summer, fall, winter, spring in my head, like the perfect season to read that book. I just like correlate books and shows with seasons. I feel like a lot of people do that. I get frustrated with myself when I read a book in summer that's like perfect to read in the winter or something like that. So I thought this would be helpful for books that you guys should read at this time of year to get in the fall mood. I have so many recs. Like I think I have like 30 books, maybe more than that. I don't really know. I have stacks all around me because I'm gonna do this in like categories, like sections. So if you kind of want to skip around, you know what kind of books you like, you can skip around because there's like different sections of the fall books based on their vibes. Like I have like creepy books, books that take place just in the fall, small town books, series, more heavy sad books. Like I have different sections for like whatever you're in the mood for, but they all have an overarching autumn vibe. I think I'm gonna start with the books that inspired this video. They literally take place in the fall and the vibes are about fall. So starting off with Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This book was so surprisingly cute and I loved it. It was like almost perfect to me. But basically it starts off on Halloween. They're at a Halloween party and then they have an amazing meet cute. And I just knew from their first meeting that I was gonna really like this book, even though it has tropes I don't necessarily like because it is accidental pregnancy. But it's so different than any other accidental pregnancy I've ever read because it doesn't feel like they're together because of the pregnancy, you know? Like there's so much more to the story. The guy in this book is the biggest sweetheart softie ever. It was basically the cutest, sweetest, most easy to get through, like didn't want to put it down book. I really recommend it, especially for this time of year. And then the next one is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sengu Mandana. I just read this one and it was so autumn and just, it's not like anything I've ever read before because it's kind of like fantasy. Is that what it is? Like she's a witch. So it's giving Harry Potter. She gets summoned to like this house in the middle of nowhere and they request that she teach other young witches like how to be a witch. I don't really know. I feel like it's more found family and like finding herself than it is necessarily about the romance. Like it's just such a cozy atmosphere. She gets to this house and to the school and she meets the three little girls she's gonna be teaching and she falls in love with the librarian and he's like kind of grumpy and quiet and all the people that live there, it's just such a found family and it was so cozy. Like I feel like this is like the perfect book to read when it's like raining outside and you're under your blankets and you want a cozy book that just like makes you feel warm and fuzzy. I would definitely recommend this one. The next category is books that remind me of fall in the same way that Gilmore Girls reminds me of fall. Like not necessarily that it takes place in fall or there's anything really autumnal about it, but Gilmore Girls is a fall show, you know? And these books are fall books. These are all small town romances. So first is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. This is age gap like done right. Like she's older, single dad, lives in the middle of nowhere, but she comes back to this town because she wants to learn more about what happened to her mom who used to live in this town and she went missing. So she comes back, she's renting the guest house on his property and it's grumpy sunshine and super slow burn and takes place in like the middle of the mountains or the woods or something. I just love a slow burn. I love like having to wait for something to happen and like clinging on to every minuscule interaction between the two characters. And that's what this book was. And I loved every second of it. And I definitely recommend it. Then is a duet. I don't know if this is gonna become a series or if it's just these two books, but it's When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams, and they're so short and so easy and perfect. Like I gave this one 5 stars and this one 4.5, and I couldn't ask for anything more from these books. Like this is Gilmore Girls rewritten. Small town, the guy in the first book owns like a little bakery, so it's giving Luke. And then the most famous pop star in like the entire world, her car breaks down in this small town. The guy that owns the bakery ends up helping her. He's super grumpy, it's grumpy sunshine. He doesn't want to help her at first, but he can't help that he's attracted to her and he doesn't want like this famous celebrity living in his town and ruining the vibes, but he falls for her anyway. And it was so cute. And then the second book is his little sister who owns a flower shop and then the bodyguard of the famous pop star. It's good girl, bad boy. He's like tattooed and everyone thinks he's like this rebel and she is like the town sweetheart, like the Rory Gilmore of the town. Everyone loves her. She is friends with all the old ladies and all the old men are so protective of her, and when they see her with this tattooed guy, they're like, immediately know. And this one is practice dating trope, so he's helping her get more comfortable with dating. So it's kind of fake dating vibes, and these books are just, I love them. I literally love them so much. Similar to that is another group of two. Both of these are complete standalones, but they take place in the same town. So the same fictional universe, but you can read them in any order. You can read them one, you can read the other, whatever one's calling to you. But if you do want to read both of them, I'd read In a Jam first and then Shucked. These are by Kate Canterbury. This first one is childhood friends to estranged to lovers. So he was kind of like quiet and shy in high school, and she was super popular, but they had like a secretive kind of friendship going on, and he always had a crush on her and she never knew. And then she moves away, goes like lives this whole life, and then ends up going through a divorce or a breakup or something, and moving back to this small town. She inherits a farm right next to his. Now they're neighbors. He's a single dad now and still has that same crush on her that he had back when he was like a quiet kid in high school, but he had like such a major glow up. So she comes back, she's like, oh my god, he's so hot now. But he's still like that quiet, sweet, wholesome boy, and I loved this one. I love a single dad trope. And then this book just came out, takes place in the same town, but the characters don't know each other. They do appear in this book a few times and like they kind of become friends, but it's not connected at all. But this one is brother's best friend, age gap done right. Again, they both own shops right next to each other. He owns a restaurant and she owns a cafe. They're right next to each other in a small town. It starts off with them hating each other. Growing up, she always disliked him because he was kind of mean to her and would like pick on her and tease her, so she never really liked him. And they get off on the wrong foot. He's super grumpy, but he's obsessed with her. Like, the way he's obsessed with her is amazing, and she's just so happy and cute, and I love both the characters in this, and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave this one 4 stars and this one 5. Definitely recommend. Next, I'm gonna go to like creepy, Halloween-y, scary, spooky vibes. I have 3 books for this category, and they're probably ones you've already expected, but I thought I'd include them briefly anyway. So first is the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey. This is 5 books in one. This is about a serial killer and an FBI agent who's trying to crack the case and has no idea that the girl he's falling in love with is the serial killer. If you want a book that's gonna get you out of a slump, keep you on your toes, if you like Criminal Minds, read this. Like, the way that every single chapter is like a cliffhanger that you just have to keep reading, I just ate up every second. There's just so much plot and story to it, and so many like mysteries being unsolved, you just can't put it down. And it's definitely that creepy, gory, look up the trigger warnings, 100% look up the trigger warnings. It's very graphic, but if you can handle it, I recommend it. Similar to that is Verity. Everyone's read this book. I did a reading vlog on this book. Very creepy, like to the point where when I was reading it home alone, I literally wanted to cry because I was scared. Basically, this girl is hired to be a ghostwriter for a famous author because the famous author's like in a coma, but she has to go to her house and like go through all the files and learn about what she was gonna write the book about. And when she's living in her house, like a series of creepy, terrifying events are happening while the author is in a coma in a bedroom and her family's living there. And it's a romance between the ghostwriter and Verity's husband or ex-husband or whatever he is. But it's so creepy and so twisted. It's just so confusing. It's one of those books that's gonna make you stare at the ceiling and like you have to figure out how you think it, like, it's an interpretive ending. Oh my god, I couldn't put it down, but I also wanted it to end at every second because I was petrified. Definitely Halloween spooky vibes. Similar to that, you guys just saw me read this book in my Reading Dark Romances for a week, and this is so dark. It's Haunting Adeline. I don't even know if I recommend this book. Like, I honestly don't know. Like, I'm so confused on how this book makes me feel, because while I couldn't put it down and it was so addicting, it literally made my stomach hurt, and like everything I was reading felt so wrong. It's a romance, but it's not. It's twisted and sick and scary. It's basically a stalker romance. Like, he is stalking this girl and terrifying her and like traumatizing her, but they're also falling in love. Again, look up the trigger warnings for this, but if you want a creepy book that's like kind of unsettling but also has way more to the story and like more of a plot than just a romance and like the stalking and stuff, there's a second book to this that I heard is so much darker that I haven't read yet, and I don't know when I'm gonna get to it because I'm kind of terrified. I don't even know what to say about that one. What's the next stack? This one doesn't really fit in any of the categories, so I think if you guys haven't read Fourth Wing yet, now's the time. Like, fall is perfect. I feel like everyone and their grandma and their goldfish has read it, as they should, because it's phenomenal. It's probably one of my favorite books of the entire year, if not my all-time favorite. It's the first fantasy book I've ever read. It's insane. Like, it's so good, and I'm pretty sure the second one comes out at the end of this year, so soon. So you should definitely read this. In this world, they are either like a rider, a dragon rider, a healer, or a scribe. It's kind of like Divergent in the way of like you're sorted into categories, and then you have to pass a series of tests and like initiation to actually get into your division. And so it takes place at this like war college where they're all training, and it is so interesting. I didn't even care about the romance for like half of this book because I was so invested in the plot, and I was so like, it was a full movie in my head. It's so like not even like well written, but like well planned out and plotted, and it just made me so invested. And the romance on top of that is so good that it was just an automatic 5 stars. Kind of fall vibes in the same way that Harry Potter is fall vibes. Like the way I imagine the setting and the college and all of that is the same kind of essence, and I definitely think you need to read it if you haven't read it yet. Next section is small town romance series. You guys know how much I love small town romance. I'm gonna say it so I'm blue in the face. The first one that I think you need to read this fall is the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. The first book is Things We Never Got Over, which I gave 5 stars when I read this, but now I don't even know if I'd still give it 5 stars because the third one I loved even more. And so I don't know, but this is 3 books that all take place in the same town. The first 2 books are about brothers and then their childhood best friend, and it's found family. First book is grumpy sunshine trope, kind of enemies, new girl in town, forced proximity. She works at the bar he owns, and I loved this one. And then the second one, I did not like the second one, but now that I've read all 3, I can appreciate the overarching story and the way they're all connected and the found family, but I didn't like this book very much. It wasn't for me. It's, what is she, like a CIA or FBI agent or something, and he's the chief of police. Friends with benefits to lovers, which is never my favorite trope, so I think I like knew going into it I wasn't gonna like it, but I didn't hate it, but I just disliked it. But now that it's like part of this series, like I have an appreciation for it, but that's that one. And then the most recent one that came out, Things We Left Behind, I gave 5 stars, and it was incredible. It's such a thick book, and I literally read it in what, a day and a half. It's childhood friends to enemies to lovers. After reading these 2 books and seeing like the little hints that you get of this couple and like how they hate each other, but like everyone knows they have a past, but no one knows what happened. Getting their perspective and finally getting the story and the way it was done and kind of the slow burn and the obsession they have with each other, but also the hatred and like what actually happened between them was so good. And I just loved this book. It exceeded my expectations, and I already had high expectations for them. So I'm very happy with that. And I definitely think if you're gonna read this series, fall is the perfect time. It's so cozy. You guys know I couldn't talk about small town romances without talking about my favorite ones, which is the Chestnut Spring series. The new one comes out in October, and I couldn't be more excited. So you should definitely read these before October 13th when the 5th one comes out, because that one I'm assuming is gonna be just as amazing. These are all about friends and brothers that live on the same ranch in a small town. They're steamy and fun and found family and best friends and like cowboys. Do you need anything more? The first one is professional bull rider and his boss's daughter, who is also his PR manager. So good. Then my favorite in the series so far is Heartless. Age gap, single dad, nanny trope. She's watching his son. The relationship between her and his son is so cute. The relationship between them is so good and steamy, and the buildup was amazing, and I love a good age gap single dad. So then it's Powerless, which is childhood best friends to lovers. She's engaged to someone else, and it kind of sparks this feeling in him where he's like, no, wait, I know we've only been friends our whole lives, but now that you're engaged to someone else, I actually can't let this happen because I think I'm in love with you. And then Reckless is kind of reverse Grumpy Sunshine. It is accidental pregnancy, but it is still really good. Trust me, it's worth it. He doesn't know that she was ever pregnant. Like he doesn't know anything. And some time goes by, and then it's forced proximity. They're neighbors. They live in the same small town. He's so boyfriend, like in the best way. I definitely recommend this series before the new one comes out. The next series, I don't have all the books. I've read all of them though, but it's the Eden series. This is also small town, but I definitely think this gives more fall vibes too, because the first one's kind of like a murder mystery at the same time as a romance, because she's also the chief of police. The second one is single mom, forced proximity with like the most protective hero. Like I loved this second one. Third one is second chance romance, and then the fourth one is, I don't even know the trope of that one. It's like one night stand, friends with benefits, fake dating. And then last series. This is like kind of random and I feel like I don't ever talk about these books, so I wanted to include them. And this is so random for me, like something I normally wouldn't like. But when I was reading these books, I was picturing them in my head like a TV show. And I was like, if this was a TV show, I know all you guys would eat it up. Like everyone, it would be trending. Obviously not like fine pieces of literature, but it's entertaining. And that's the Boys of Brayshaw series. If I could describe this in any way, it's like a Wattpad story. That is like a compliment in the way that it's so addicting, but it's like there is something happening in every single chapter that you're just like, how is this all happening? Basically the trope is like these three best friends, they like run this town even though they're in high school, which is what's giving Wattpad. It's kind of giving mafia vibes, except they're literally like 16. There's so many secrets and mysteries and all this stuff in this book that you just like can't put it down. The first three are about one couple and then the other two brothers get one book each. This new girl comes into town and she's like kind of a badass. She lives at the foster home. Immediately like the boys are intrigued by her, like all three of them. I thought this was gonna be one of those books where like all three boys are dating the same girl. Like that's what I thought it was when I first started reading it because of the way they talk about her. But really it's like found family. Like they love her so much and then she has a romance with one of the boys. Next category, this is such a long book recommendation. I still have 3 more categories. But the next category is, these are books that just give the cozy feeling of fall, but you could read them at any point of the year, but I think now is the perfect time. First, if you haven't read Boys of Tommen yet, another series, please read it now. I know they're so long and scary, but when I tell you that they're gonna be the best things you've ever read and literally change the course of your existence, like if you're gonna read anything I ever recommend you, let it be this. I don't even know what to say besides it's so fully fleshed out. If you like books that you feel connected to the characters in the way that you know them inside and out, you know every detail of them, you know all of their trauma, you know everything that's ever happened to them, and you just know the characters so well, just how the Addicted Calloway Sister series is. That's exactly how Boys of Tommen is. Right now there's 4 books out about 2 different couples. Like they just feel like real people to me. Like when I tell you I think about them every single day, I do. The reason that I put this in this video is because the book starts off at the start of the school year. She's a new student at a new school and that is giving autumn, you know? It's not like a happy, fun summer book. It's like, okay, we're staying inside, we're reading this book, and it is gonna be kind of depressing, but it is gonna be so good that it doesn't matter. Look up the trigger warnings. You've heard me talk about it a million times. So if this is your sign, then read it now. Then is, of course, Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is past and present perspective, childhood friends to lovers. You're trying to figure out why they broke up in the first place, or like why they stopped talking, because it's flashing to when they were falling in love as kids, and then in the present when they're falling in love as adults, but you can tell there's something holding them back. Something happened between them. They grew up going to lake houses right next to each other. This is one of the books I read a really long time ago that like set the precedent for my taste in books, I feel like, because I used to think I loved every book, and then I read this one and I was like, wait, no, that's actually what I love. Then is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is about a girl who finds out her dad is dying and she hasn't talked to her dad in years because he lives in like rural Alaska. So she ends up flying to his small little town to stay with him during his last few months. He owns a private plane company where they like deliver groceries to other remote towns in Alaska. She falls in love with one of the pilots. Enemies to lovers, like they do not like each other right away. He's like, I just don't like you, because she's from the city and he's like this small town boy and he's kind of mean to her at first, but the tension between them is so good. And also I just feel like this one's like more emotional. I feel like this category is more like emotional fall books. Let's call it that. Like Love in Other Words, Binding 13, and this one are all emotional. You'll probably cry in all of them. Then The Brightest Light of Sunshine by Lucina Coney. This one is also about a girl who is trying to heal and recover from being sexually assaulted, so trigger warning on that. She's so sweet and quiet and shy, and she ends up befriending her brother's friend who's older than her, and it's like this unlikely friendship. He's kind of a single dad, basically taking care of his younger sister. This book is like very sweet and soft and cute. It's not Pride and Prejudice, the best book ever written, but it is so cute and I loved it. Oh my god, my feet are asleep. Ouch. Second to last category. These are books that technically take place in the summer, but strictly give fall vibes. You'll see what I mean. First off, It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Right in the title, summer. But no, this is a fall book through and through. In my head, when I was picturing this, because it takes place in coastal Washington, it's like gloomy and rainy, and in my head, I was picturing fall. I don't care that it says it's summer, it was fall to me. A popular, famous socialite gets punished by her parents for partying too much and gets sent to go to the town that her dad is from, kind of learn more about who she is and what she wants to do with her life. She ends up like starting to renovate this bar. That's like her project. This local small town deep sea fisherman, grumpiest guy ever, doesn't like her at first because she's like this famous girl, kind of like that other book I was talking about. Slowly the town starts embracing her and everyone starts falling in love with her, especially him. And it's super grumpy sunshine and super sweet and like opposites attract, and it's fall. It's fall. They try to convince you it's summer, it's not. That is the same thing with beach read. Out of all of Emily Henry's books, this one is fall. I know it's beach read, but it's not. It takes place at a lake house. Does it get more fall than a lake house? Like, the main character's dad passed away, so she's going to his lake house to kind of like look through all his stuff, and it turns out her next door neighbor is her college rival. I'm sure you read it, okay? Like, I don't even need to explain it. Every time I think about this book, I get chills. It's just such like a nostalgic feeling. Like, I love it so much. It's so cozy and warm and just, I love it. Another summer fall book. Archer's Voice. Pretty sure this one also takes place in the summer in a small like coastal town. Bree moves to a new town. She's the new girl. It's a small town. Everyone knows each other. And immediately she runs into this boy. She's intrigued by him because he doesn't speak to her. She runs into him and she talks to him and he doesn't respond. He just walks away. So she starts asking around the town about him and everyone is like, ew, stay away from him. Like all these rumors, whatever. And she refused to give up. She strikes up a friendship with like the town outcast. It's their romance and it is so good. You guys know this is one of my favorite books of all time. I just reread it. Good, innocent boy and sweet, happy girl and just the best vibes and feelings in the world. My feet are literally so asleep. Oh my god. But we're on the last category and I don't even know what this category technically is, but like I grouped these together on purpose. Like they all have the same vibe. These books don't really have anything in common, but they're the same vibe and they all are the same autumnal kind of vibe. So first with Normal People, my favorite book ever. It is character driven, follows a boy and a girl, Connell and Marianne, from the time they're in high school all the way through adulthood. It doesn't follow a plot. It just follows these characters' lives and how they're so intertwined with each other and they can do whatever they want, go their separate ways, but they'll always come back to each other. The girls that get it, get it. Like if you relate to either of these characters, they're both so well developed. If you relate to them, you'll just eat this book up. Then The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. This book had my head spinning. Like I never knew what was going on and that kind of frustrated me so much, but that was the point. Like the reader's supposed to be confused and trying to figure out what is happening because you figure it out and you're like, oh my god, all of this makes sense. I need to reread this book now that I know what happened and like what the story is because I feel like it'd be so much better now that I know. It's told from like different characters' perspective, all dating the same man. This is definitely not my favorite book of all time. I think I gave it 3 stars, which is still good to me. Like that means I still recommend it. But the way it just had my head spinning, like I was so confused, but I loved the satisfaction of once I figured out, once I started piecing together what was happening and my mind exploding. Then this book, I should have started off with this one because Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino is autumn in a book. It's the warmest hug of a story and I just love it so much. If you like Normal People and you want another book similar to it, this is so similar. It's the same two people that meet when they're young and their lives are just fully intertwined and like they have like miscommunication and then things go wrong and then they're not together but they should be together the whole time. It's frustrating but amazing, and just by not doing or saying one thing, how different your life could turn out, and like losing touch with someone and how easy it is to fall out of communication when you're not good at communicating your feelings or whatever. Like I just love this book so much. I definitely think you should read it. One of my favorite books ever, The Song of Achilles. This is a Greek mythology retelling. It's like didn't fit in with the rest of the book, so I put it in this category, but it's just the most beautiful story and it's gonna rip your heart out and make you sob. There's a reason that it's like one of the most popular books like ever. I think this is gonna be like a classic that they require people to read in school one day. Like it's just so good. The last book of this video finally, which is so random because this is a John Green book, but it's Looking for Alaska, which I read this book in 7th grade. How long ago was that? Like 10 years ago? If you're like younger and watching this and you haven't read Looking for Alaska because you missed the era when this was like trending everywhere, I think you should read it. It is just like a classic, like a staple. Like every reader has read this book at some point in their lives. It takes place at like a summer camp-esque boarding school and it's about 3 best friends. One of them's like the cool girl and then one's like the class clown kind of, and then one is like the new quiet smart kid. There's a romance, but it's also like about found family and the story and the adventure. The whole point of this book is that the main character wants to discover like his purpose, kind of his, what does he call it? his Great Perhaps. I feel like this is just the perfect book when you're younger to read at this time of year. And there's also a show on Hulu that was really cute too. But those are all the books that I'm gonna talk about in today's video. There are so many, oh my God. It's definitely the biggest book recommendation I've ever done in history, but I just couldn't leave any out. Like, all of them were so fitting. I hope you got a good fall TBR out of this. And I know there's so many more fall-esque books that I need to read, like dark academia vibes that have been on my TBR forever that I need to just read already. But when it hits fall, something in me just wants to read small town romance. So I'm not gonna rob myself of that. So all that being said, thank you for watching today's video. If you want to follow me on my other social medias, they're all linked down below as always. And I'll see you in my next video very, very soon. Bye!